Welcome to WikiAfrica Hour, a monthly live broadcast airing the fresh perspectives of Africa's Wikimedians. It's a space where they share their work and knowledge and digest, through African realities, the global Wikimedia movement. WikiAfrica Hour, the voice of African Wikimedians.
We start with news from Wiki in Africa projects. The deadline for Wiki Loves Africa Rapid Grants applications is December 1st, 2024. These grants provide funding for local organizers to plan events supporting the 2025 photographic contest. If you are planning photo walks, editathons, or other community engagement events, don't miss the chance to secure funding. For details and to apply, visit the Meta page. The 7th edition of Wiki Challenge called Africa, a writing competition for students aged 8 to 13 in French-speaking Africa, launches in January 2nd, 2024. Organized by Orange Foundation and Wiki in Africa, the competition will span 12 countries, including new participants, Liberia and Botswana. Recognized for outstanding contributions to open education, the Wiki Challenge continues to empower young learners across the continent.
Wikimedia 2012 is heading to Nairobi, Kenya for its 20th anniversary with the theme Wikimedia at 20, Inclusivity, Impact and Sustainability. Scholarships are now open until 8th December 2024, covering travel, accommodation and registration for the conference happening 6th until 9th August 2025. Don't miss this chance to connect with Wikimedians from across the globe. Applications should highlight your contributions to Wikimedia's inclusivity and sustainability goals. For more details and to apply, visit the Meta page. Karibuni, Nairobi. The annual Wikimedia Hackathon will take place in Istanbul, Turkey from 2nd May to May 4th, 2025. This in-person event, organized by the Wikimedia Foundation and Wikimedia User Group Turkey, invites participants to collaborate, learn and innovate together. Scholarships covering travel and accommodation are available for eligible participants until December 10th, 2024. For more information, including visa requirements and remote participation options, visit the hackathon page. Wikimedia France is hosting PatrolConf on Saturday, November 30th, 2024 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. UTC via video conference. This event is designed to enhance skills of patrollers on French Wikipedia. Registration and further details are available on Meta.
News needs community engagement. Volunteer committees play a vital role in the Wikimedia community, offering leadership and support through various roles such as administrators, advisors, and stewards. Several committees are seeking new volunteers, including the Ombuds Commission and Case Review Committee. Applications are now with the deadline being December 2nd. For more details, visit MetaWiki. The Wiki Women Task Force, formerly the Wiki Women Collective, is forming a global steering committee to drive initiatives aimed at closing the gender gap on Wikimedia projects. Born out of discussions at the Wiki Women Camp, this task force aims to create a strategic and collaborative platform to address gender equity challenges. The nomination process has been extended to December 10, 2024, to ensure diverse regional, linguistic, gender, sexual orientation, and ability representation. If you are passionate about advancing gender equity and have the skills and experience to contribute, we encourage you to apply. For more details or to post your application, visit the nominations page on Meta.
Some news from the Wikimedia Foundation. The Wikimedia Foundation's audited financial statements for the fiscal year end June 30th, 2024 are now available. This marks 19 consecutive years of clean audits for the Foundation. Additionally, the inaugural audit report for the standalone Wikimedia Endowment and the Wikimedia Enterprise Financial Report for the same period has been released. Key highlights, frequently asked questions, and deeper financial insights can be found on Diff and MetaWiki. Make sure to visit the WikiAfrica Hour news page on MetaWiki for all relevant links. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November episode of WikiAfrica Hour, Wiki Conferences behind the scene. It's a very interesting topic, and personally, I have many questions related to it, and waiting for our guest today to uncover some of these questions. As you know, WikiAfrica Hour is the voice of African Wikimedians and supported by Wiki in Africa. Today, we are honored to have Lodewijk as our guest host today, and he will lead the conversation with the other guest speakers. Lodewijk has edited the Dutch Wikipedia since 2005, organized Wikilove's monuments for many years, and organized both national and international Wikimedia events. He currently serves in the Wikimedia Committee as well. Thank you so much, Lodewijk, for accepting the invitation, and we are so enthusiastic to this amazing session. You have the mic now, and I'll be backstage listening to this amazing one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donia, and thank you for organizing this. We have a great show planned for you today. Today we will be discussing a range of conferences, especially focusing on the more local and the more regional conferences. And we will be exploring a few different points. We will be looking at what the importance and the key drivers are of these conferences, the process, like how we choose the themes, things like logistics, budgets, and the roles and responsibilities for everyone to play in such a conference, in an organizing team, and how we work together. And also, how do we create a safe and constructive environment before the conference starts. We will try to answer questions from the audience during the conversation, but hopefully we will have some time at the end as well. So please leave your comments in the chat on YouTube, and we will try to get to them. And I think it is time to introduce our guests. So I will introduce them, and I will ask every one of them to briefly tell a little bit more about themselves and share their favorite memory of one of the Wikimedia conferences that they have experienced. Our first guest is Reda, who has organized many wiki events such as WikiArabia in 2022 and 2024. Reda, welcome.
Hello, Lodewijk. Hello. Yes, my name is Reda. I'm initially from Algeria. I have started to be a part of this movement from 2014, and thank you to have invited me to this online conference.
And what is your favorite memory of a Wikimedia conference, Reda?
I mean, you mean I can explain it. The last WikiArabia, maybe I have it was sessions like Wiki Mosaic, Wiki Paint were the sessions that gather people. For me, this is the most valuable thing at the last WikiArabia that I have.
That sounds lovely. Thank you, Reda, and look forward to chat more. I would like to welcome Geoffrey, who is a member of the Communications Committee of Wiki Indaba 2024. Geoffrey, welcome. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Geoffrey, Kateregga, I'm a member of the Wikimedia Communities Group, Uganda, but I also participated in organizing Wiki in different capacities. Yeah, I've been involved also in Wikimedia since 2014. I think my favorite conference memory was 2021. So in 2021, Wiki Indaba had to go online. We were hosting Wiki Indaba as Uganda in 2020, but then we were forced to shift the conference to go online. So it was the first time Wiki Indaba was being organized online. But what ended up happening is that very many people were able to join the conference. Like, it's the biggest number that has ever attended Wiki Indaba, and ever since Wiki Indaba has become a hybrid conference. So that's kind of my favorite memory. It was nice seeing very many people join the conference online. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Next, I would like to welcome Cornelius, who is the Conference and Events Funds Program Officer at the Wikimedia Foundation. But I know him so much longer. We've been through many conferences together in Berlin. Cornelius, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lodewijk. Hi, Reda. Hi, Geoffrey. Yeah, I'm Cornelius. I'm from Berlin. I'm from Germany. I am a Wikipedian and Wikimedian. So I started editing Wikipedia as a volunteer in 2004, 20 years ago. And later then I worked for Wikimedia Germany and organized mainly the Wikimedia Conference, or later called Wikimedia Summit, which is the annual gathering of the Wikimedia affiliates. Later, I joined the Wikimedia Foundation, where I organized virtual events, something totally different. And now I'm back at the foundation since August 1st as the Conference and Event Fund Program Officer, covering for Chen, who is on maternity leave. And my favorite conference memory, there are many, but like one of the first regional conferences that I attended was the CE meeting 2015 in Vore in Estonia. And it was a really remote village, and it created really a community over that weekend. And so I got to know the CE community so much better at this event, and I understood the value also of hosting events in remote locations. Let's say it that way. Thanks.
Thank you, Cornelius. And then the next guest is Vanj, who is a member of the Conference Support Committee, and I think has organized so many different conferences over the years. Vanj, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. I'm Vanj Padilla. I'm the founder of Shared Knowledge Asia Pacific. Hello, Cornelius. Hi, Geoffrey and Reda. Hi from the Philippines. So I just came from establishing and launching a Wiki Club Cebu in the Philippines right now. So it's midnight already, but we finished the launch with an editathon and a photo walk at about 9 p.m. in the Philippines. So my favorite memory of a conference is the 2023 Wikimania, which I was able to co-organize the Wiki Women Summit and join the COT, or the core organizing team. My forte is event strategy, and I'm really excited about crafting strategy and how to maximize the potentials of conferences and events. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanj. Next, I would like to welcome Dumi, who is the board chair of Who's Knowledge and advisor of Wikimedia South Africa, and has fulfilled so many different roles in the past years. Dumi, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dumisani Dubani. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I'm pleased to be joining you today. Conferences that are memorable to me, I would have to say there are two conferences. The first one is the Washington, D.C. Wikimania in 2012. That was the first Wikimania I attended, and it's special because that's where I met Wikimedia ZA members for the first time. I had to fly all the way to Washington, D.C. to meet South Africans in real time. So that's really memorable. The second one is Wiki Indaba 2024, the first one. It's memorable because I was hosting it for the first time in the continent, and so many things that we learned from that conference. But the biggest lesson that came out of it is, how do we keep this going? How do we make sure that this conference continues to live and inspire many more editors and community members in the continent? So yeah, those are the two memorable conferences for me.
Thank you, Dumi. And our final guest today is Rachit, who is the Senior Movement Communication Specialist at the Wikimedia Foundation. Rachit, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me here. Hi to all the other panelists, the moderators, and all of the folks listening in. My name is Rachit. I work with the Movement Communications department at the Wikimedia Foundation. I've been here for about 3 years now. I live in a city called Gurgaon in India, and I have had the fortune of being of supporting and being a part of various regional conferences and also supporting Wikimania. And I've had the pleasure of working with a few of the panelists here as well. My favorite memory would be from Wiki Conference India 2023, which was probably the first in-person conference, regional conference that I supported and really got my hands dirty with in a way, and worked a lot with the community members, was able to support them wherever, however needed, and was the first time I met the Indian and the South Asian communities from, I think, if I remember the number correctly, 15 different communities and languages, which was just incredible, the amount of cultural exchange that you go through. And at a more personal level, I love the food at conferences. The food is usually good. You always learn a lot about the commonalities and the differences of our cuisine and of our cultures in these conferences, and that's always something I love exploring. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my personal favorite is always the hallway conversations. I love just like the sessions are great, but for me personally, the hallways is where the real magic of a conference happens in Wikimedia, where we learn so much from each other and really excite each other. Today we will be talking, I hear a lot of good memories from Wikimania, and I think everybody in the audience also will love to hear more about Wikimania, but we're saving that for a future episode. We're talking mostly about regional and local conferences today. So that just that people in the audience don't think that we're ignoring Wikimania. We're just saving that for later because we have Wikimania, of course, in Kenya coming up, and that is very exciting and that deserves just its own spotlight. So first, I would like to talk a little bit more about like why do we even need conferences? Why are we organizing them? What is motivating us as a community? And how do we get there? I would like to ask people to just weigh in. Let's keep a free conversation flow. Yeah, who would like to? Who has a first thought? Like, what is the main purpose of organizing these conferences? Maybe Cornelius, you have a thought about that.
So I just want to talk. I started with an anecdote. The first Wikipedia event that I hosted was in 2005, and it was a party basically in my garden. I had a house and I had a huge garden, and I invited German Wikipedians to it, and it was the first gathering of German Wikipedians, actually, of the German Wikipedia back in 2005, and it was really incredible because even back then, maybe even more, there were a lot of conflicts within the Wikipedia community, within the German Wikipedia community, and it felt so good to see each other faces, and because you could simply talk about the things that bothered you, right? And it made everything so much easier. And you felt that several conflicts were solved at this party back then. Yeah? And so I was really great to see the other faces, to feel the emotions, right? Because in our text communication, often the emotional level is kind of missing. So it was really, it's good to see each other and not only to talk through text from each one-to-one, basically. That would be one. So making our movement more human, more personal, is something that's definitely one of the main purposes or reasonings why we need conferences, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think building that community is really one of the big reasons. Who else has? Are there any other thoughts that people have about why it is so important that we organize these communities? Rachit, perhaps?
I think just to add to what Cornelius said, I think it's important for people to come together to have that face time with each other, to learn from each other, and a lot of problems can get resolved. A lot of new topics to work on could be created when you're all when you're in front of each other. The hallway conversations that you mentioned are super important. I also think one of the things which is important in terms of the growth and sustainability of the movement is because we constantly have newcomers coming into the different parts of the movement, different communities, and for them having this face time, for them listening to people, having the conversations with those who've been around for a longer time is very important for their own journey in the movement. And I think that's also one of the key reasons why conferences are important.
Thank you. Yes, that is definitely the case. Dumi, do you want to add something? And then after that, I would like to move on to doing a little inventory of like what types of conferences are even existing. But Dumi, go ahead.
I think one of the most important reasons for Wiki Indaba is to start new communities, which is weird. How does a conference help communities to start? But this is the thing that we've been able to observe from the very first Wiki Indaba, that people come in as individuals, they come into this community settings, they get welcomed, they have a chance to ask so many questions, and they leave motivated to get their own communities started. And that's really a great return on investment if you think about it.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of a better investment as a volunteer movement than to invest in our communities. That's definitely the case. Geoffrey, would you like to start with like thinking of like what are the different types of events to give people a little bit of a background of like what are we even talking about? I've heard Wiki Indaba, I've heard Wikimania. Like what is around there under the sun?
Yeah, so there are different conferences in the media movement, and I think, like I have mentioned, some of them are regional, but also some of them are like kind of thematic according to like the kind of project based. So I think just to point on a few that are regional, of course, we have Wiki Arabia, we have Wiki Indaba, which are kind of yeah, Wiki Indaba is like Africa-based. Yeah, but also we have like Wikimania, which is of course kind of like the global one. So there are different events, and I think it's important for for people to know which events are there so that they can be part of them. Sometimes you may not even know that a particular conference exists. So there are some that are kind of project kind of conferences. For example, the Wikidata Convention. Yeah, then there is like, for example, the Wiksource. So they also have like a conference. So there are several projects, and I think when you categorize them that way, whether per topic or per region, then it gives you a picture of which ones you can attend. And I think it's also important to kind of identify which ones are in person, which ones are online, and which ones are hybrid, because sometimes you may not be able to travel to a conference. But if a conference is online or hybrid, it also gives you that opportunity to attend it online. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a very different kind of challenge to organize it online. We've had that opportunity, especially during the pandemic. Cornelius is smiling. Cornelius, do you want to share something about like the special challenges that you've seen online?
I don't want to explore that too much, to be honest, because that it's a huge. I think it's something that we all still underestimate, and the complexity of how complicated it is to host a hybrid event. And I found it so ironic that we, as a digital movement, didn't host any larger virtual event until the pandemic, basically, right? So we needed to learn a lot. And I mean, there's something around having an offline event that you stream. Yeah, that's where there is no interaction between both sides. Then you can have a virtual event, right, where it's only virtual, and then you have a hybrid event. And I personally underestimated how complicated it is to host a hybrid event, because you need to take care of the offline part, of the online part, and think about how you connect both parts. Yeah, and so how online participants talk to offline participants, and that's incredibly challenging. It is mind-blowing, and the complexity, I just want to say that. And we experienced that for the Wikimedia Summit 2022 in Berlin. That was a hybrid event. And I personally would say I prefer offline events because they are so much easier to organize than hybrid events. But just as a comment to that.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Like online events are its own category in that sense of like if you're talking about local or regional. And I think I would love to hear a little bit more about like the different local conferences. Like what are the kind of local conferences that are really successful? What makes a local conference a success? Does anyone have to have a thought about that? Dumi, go ahead.
Can I add something about it?
Sure, Vanj.
So local conferences will be successful if the attendees are of like-minded individuals. For example, it's a thematic event where members or participants would like to innovate and grow or expand the society or the group that they are into. Also, the strategic events are also successful because when you really put your mind and presence into the event, the goals will be achieved as long as there is a unification of mind and purpose.
Thank you, Vanj. Dumi, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen other local events that are national based. Nigeria has just hosted a local event, national conference, and other volunteers. A great example of a national conference that can help solve specific issues, issues where you have clearly locally defined problems that are happening amongst groups, amongst editors that actually require personal time to talk things out and to plan ahead. Nigeria is a big country, and with so many affiliates in that same country, problems up. And that national conference was really useful in diffusing some tensions that were there and helping people to start planning towards the same direction. We also had a sub-regional conference in East Africa a few years ago, where our staff went in and did some trainings. It was a couple of days in a week that volunteers went in and did some specific trainings around, activation, around special skills like batch uploading and so on. So different conferences for different reasons can be really useful.
Thank you, Dumi. Reda?
Yes, just want to add something also about what is a good conference or successful conference. For example, I can share the experience that we had with the Wikimedia Wiki Arabia 2024 in Oman. We started to organize a conference where there is no affiliation at all, so there is no community. So the first steps to do for us is to create a program called, for example, Wiki Youth Program, and we and with this Wiki Youth Program, we train for several months, 2 or 3 months, people in Oman. And when we come to Oman, there is a huge community there, a local community. And after the conference, I hope, I believe that they will apply to be a user group or a community in Wikimedia. And for me, it is a success to do something like that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. As for our participants online on YouTube, please share in the chat whether what wiki conferences you have attended and which ones you like. I already saw Jan was very excited about the Wikimedia Summit in Berlin, where he had a great experience with the hybrid experience. But maybe people can share a little bit more, like what they were especially excited about and what challenges they have seen. Because now we're going to transition to the logistical part of organizing a conference, everything that is hard and easy. I think, Reda, you already made a great start with that. I would like to talk a little bit about like where do you start? What is like a good documentation, for example, that you could rely on, or who would you talk with if you would have to advise someone? Like let's say someone in our audience comes to you and says like, I want to organize a conference in my country, a national conference. Where would you tell them to start? Who has a thought about that?
Yeah, happy to share about this. I think the first part to start is really to attend a conference. I think when you attend one, then you kind of get an idea of, you know, what kind of audience you can have, what kind of topics you can have. So I think that's the very first one, and then just also to compare what we do at Wiki Endeavor is that then the next host. So if you are announced as the next host, it's also important to participate in organizing the current conference, because then you learn a lot on, you know, what can go right, what can go wrong, what makes the conference successful, and that prepares you in advance. And yeah, it helps you to, you know, prepare your team and make sure that you deliver a successful conference.
Yeah, I think that is great advice to look at how other people are doing it and bring experience onto your team. What would a good team look like, you think? Like who should you who else in the community should you find and bring on board in creating a good team? Reda, do you have a thought, perhaps?
You know, in my experience, it's a difficult question, because if we are talking, if you are talking about conferences, for example, if we are talking about Wiki Arabia, for me to have the best COT is the local organizers. I will explain why. Because they know the specificity of the country. This is why. But if we are talking about the program and the grant and the scholarship committee, yes, from here, from our experience, we take from the last Wiki Arabia, we have taken like 50% experienced participants from Wikipedia in Arabic, and the 50% not experienced people. And we get a good result, because we mix between the two, and we have one good organizing committee. For me, it's to mix between the old generation of Wikimedians and the new ones.
Yeah, that is great. What kind of other qualities do we need in an organizing team? If you're looking at in your country, like who is available? Dumi, do you have? I think you've organized your conferences. Where would you start to look?
I would start with people who actually have a lot of time available. You're not going to be able to organize a conference when people are treating it as a, you know, as and when I'm available kind of endeavor. You need people who will be committed. They need to understand between the day you accept to be that host until the last day, you have to be there. You cannot not be available. And so you need to make sure that you've got like-minded people who will put in their time and effort towards this. So that would be the very first thing I would look at is, do you actually have the time? Will you be available to be with us, to go through with us with the journey? And then the skills. Have people organized conferences before? As Geoffrey has said, have they attended a conference before? Do they know what to be looking for? Can they think ahead for things that can go wrong and do scenario planning, logistics? All those things needs hands on decks. They're not gonna do themselves. We need people who will be available to say, I can take this part or I can take that part and see it through. Because if you don't, then suddenly most likely more available ends up taking a lot of work on their own. And then you end up with either it's a horrible conference experience, or it's a great conference experience, but the organizer is totally burnt out. They don't want to organize another conference ever again, which happened or has happened before. So that would be my thoughts there.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think the hardest challenge for any organizer is people who promise to do something and then don't follow through. That is definitely always the trickiest. Cornelius, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would add to what Dumi said. It is really, I think it's important to have someone who has organized events before, like from a logistical experience, who has event management experience. That is really helpful, yeah, because that's on the one side to have someone who knows how about logistics, especially when international travel is involved. That gets a bit more complicated. And on the other side, I would like to highlight how important it is to have Wikimedians or volunteers like involved in planning. So it is an authentic experience, a real experience, something that's close to Wikimedia and its movement. And so that organizers actually create an event that it's close to their audience, to the audience of the event. Yeah, so that feels like a real Wikimedia event and not something that someone else has organized for you, right? So I think that's both is really important. And I mean, to what Geoffrey said, it is good, especially if you organize an event that is part of a series, like say Wiki Indaba, the CE meeting, Wiki Conference North America, then talk to the previous co-organizing team, because they just went through all the challenges, and start with them, asking with them. Ideally, there is a good handover from one team to another.
Yeah, and ideally they have created some documentation. I know there's a lot of documentation on Meta as well. I'm sure someone in the chat will now be able to paste some links. I know some usual suspects who are watching and who might be able to paste some links. And I think one of the big challenges that we're always facing, or at least that I was having trouble with as a first-time organizer of the Dutch Wikimedia Conference back in 2006, is like how do you even come up with a budget? How do you even think about like what are the main expenses? And like if you've never organized it, I find that really hard to estimate. Cornelius, is that something that the foundation can help with, or is that something that like that you see happen a lot, the challenge?
Obviously, I think budgeting is challenging, yeah, especially and we're living in times of raising inflation, so it is hard to budget, but it's something that we can work out. So my job is at the moment the conference and event fund program officer. Yeah, so that means I review and I work with grantees to work also on the budgets, and I'm very here to help you in budgeting. I think a good start is to review previous budgets, because all the budgets of the Wikimedia events that are funded by the foundation are public, so they're always on those grant proposals. They're always budget links, and it's a good start to look. These are the things that I need to include in my budget. Yeah, so coffee break is essential. Airport transfer is something that's valuable, and so using those previous budget is a good start, and then you build the budget. And it's good to talk to your conference event fund program officer, because he can help you in budgeting or in building the budget together. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and what would you say the main expense categories are typically? Like if you would have to say like the three most expensive, like especially in an African context, what would be if we're talking about a national conference? Of course, if you do anything international, travel is going to be trumping everything else. But if we're talking about a national context,
it is always the three categories. So it's always travel, it's always accommodation, and the third one is usually venue. So like renting the venue if it's not included in the hotel, or so the event tech, also AV. So these are the three categories. Everything else is, I wouldn't say neglectable, but it's easier to manage. It's also lower in budget. But like really accommodation, main issue. Travel, always main budget item. And then venue, space, rental.
Yes, thank you. Vanj, do you want to contribute to that?
Yeah, with regards to budget, we need someone in the team who is very much resourceful, in the sense that when we organize events, we think of like three budget categories. Number one is there is very little budget. So how can we put up the event with very little budget? And then if we have proposed a budget, can we still implement or execute the event with half the budget from the proposal? So we will throw the problems and challenges to the team. And then the last thing is, if the budget has been approved or if the budget is not a problem, then how do we execute the event to the point that it will be very satisfactory for everyone? So those are the things that organizers and planners would really check on, so that they have they can make strategies if worst comes to worst, or if there is a backup plan for anything that will happen or challenges that might have pop up along the way. It keeps sanity for the organizers and the core team. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a great advice. So to start with a shoestring budget to begin with, see what you can cut further if income is disappointing, and see where you would expand if you suddenly run across a sponsor or someone who is willing to give a little bit more. Unfortunately, the last thing is very rare. Just to set expectations for people, that is not something that happens very often. But that sounds like a great option to think about. Reda, what do you think?
I just want to add something to the thoughts. Just make sure, I'm just always referring to the last WikiArabia that I have organized with my team. We have organized the conference there where there is no one from Wikimedia, so there is no affiliation at all. And every time in the future, if I will do another conference in another country, the first what I should to do is to make sure that my partner there in this country is qualified to do an international conference, because you can have like an expected fee like for visas or for a lot of things. So just want to add that if you for us if you will have an expected fee, it's normal. So there is Cornelius who can help with it.
Yes, thank you. I would like to transition to Rachit, who may have something to add. And I would like to learn more, maybe Rachit, you know this, or maybe Cornelius after that. What kind of funding is available within the Wikimedia movement? So what are the different sources that people can look at aside from their local resources? Rachit, go ahead.
Thank you for that. On the resources, I think Cornelius is the best person. So Cornelius, I'm coming to you soon. But in terms of some of the elements that we spoke about, and I think folks have covered so many of the ones that I was thinking of. Sometimes in my experience, I've seen there's a lot of focus on cultural exchange. So maybe there's an offsite or a visit to a particular place or a center, or calling someone in to showcase culture and traditions of a particular conference. This is applicable for local conferences and national conferences and regional conferences as well. So that's a line item that I've seen in some of my experience come up a little later. The other is about the virtual platform. I know we spoke about the hybrid conferences, but what is the level? Because one is, okay, having a stream or having YouTube, Google, and all of those capabilities, but then there is more. So for example, we saw Indaba use Eventia this time for their virtual, as a virtual platform. So every conference would like to or would need to, and the organizers would decide on what is the level of virtual capabilities. And that's something that should be also budgeted for. And the third thing, one is of course the budget, and then as Cornelius said, they work very closely, and there are people who work, there are some resources available, but it's also the through and through financial management. I think it was Dumi who said people need to be around for the entire course, and I think if for the financial management, that's important to stay on top of the budgets, to not underspend, overspend, and reallocate resources wherever. There's a lot of permutation combinations needed during the course of the conference. And I think one is, of course, it's important to have the right budget in place, but it's also important to see that through and manage that through and ensure that it's that that there's someone keeping an eye on the different elements, etc. Because you can overshoot or undershoot. Both have their pros and cons. Thank you.
Yes, I think aside from planning for an undershooting, it's always, or for an overshooting of budget, it's even more important to know when it's happening, when you're going out of your budget and when you're spending more than you should be. Cornelius, can you tell us more about where people could ask for resources or see if resources are available within the movement, and like at what point in their organizing trajectory should they start thinking about that?
So there, I think, so we have in many countries, we have Wikimedia affiliates that have their own funds, basically. So that's if you live in a country that has a Wikimedia chapter or user group that receives funds from the foundation, that's a good start, basically. Approach your local chapter and ask if they're interested in organizing something, if they're interested in funding something. That is always a good start. If you live in a country where there is no affiliate or there's no chapter, no user group, you can do something on your own and you can reach out to the Wikimedia Foundation. So there is, I'm just mentioning it because I think it's no less important. So there are rapid grants up to $5,000. That is something that you could host a small event, especially that's good for editathons or similar events. That's you can ask for a rapid grant at the foundation. If you want to go bigger, if you want to host an international event, a regional event, then you want to apply for the Conference and Event Fund on Meta, Conference and Event Fund. And this fund has two funding rounds. One is the deadline in September, and the other one is in February, basically. And this is for large events. That means for budgets above $30,000. And Lodewijk asked when to reach out, and I would say as early as possible, because that makes everything easier. So we flexibilize the rules, and so you can apply already for a grant for a conference that will take place in 2 years, basically. So it is now much easier to apply earlier, to plan early. So you don't have to. Yeah, it's that you can allow more time for planning, and which is especially relevant for events with international travel, where visa are needed for participants.
Yes, I can totally see how that gets very complicated very quickly. Cornelius, can you tell a little bit more about if people, like, of course they should apply whenever they have an application ready to apply with, but what if people just have an idea? Is there someone at the foundation they should reach out to discuss like which of the grants are most appropriate, or what is even available at that point? What would you say would be the point of contact for that? And can they come to that person with just like a crazy idea, or should they have something more well defined?
So I will look for my email address. We have an email address that says conferencegrants@wikimedia.org, and that is the right point of contact. You can contact us also with a crazy idea, I would say. Yes, you can also contact us with a crazy idea and we can discuss it. I always say the more you talk, the better we can work out together what is feasible, what makes sense, and what kind of support you need, and contact me directly. So there is conferencegrants@wikimedia.org, and we can work out together if it's feasible. Yeah.
I think that is great, and I think also in the African community specifically, like definitely look at other organizers in neighboring countries and surrounding areas, other people who you know. These often have a lot of experience with regards to like where you can find grants or where you can find it, and what is realistic, because that's always a big question, of course, as well. Like how can you make it into something realistic? If you want to apply for a rapid grant, that is much easier than if you want to apply for a bigger grant. So maybe it's worthwhile if you're a first-time organizer to scale it to a one-day event first, and then in the next iteration you can go a little bit bigger. So that's the kind of conversations you can have. I think there's some links being shared both in the screen and on the chat. So thank you very much for that. And I think Cornelius also shared an email address that you can approach for more information. Anyone else wants to add something about grants or about what kind of support the foundation can offer? Rachit?
Just to add on top, I think what Cornelius has already covered the right pieces, but and given, for example, in Africa and the different regions in the Middle East. So as a part of movement communications, we have regional specialists who work on a regular basis with the different communities, and in some cases, at least I can speak from my personal experience, we have some conversations with some of the organizers, or are in the loop before when at the ideation stage, at the germination stage, like when someone thinks about should we have a conference, and that's also one of the avenues you could explore if any regional specialist, someone who works, because all of that, there's a lot of localization of context, there's a lot of understanding of the community that's there, which could help in shaping and planning the thought. So that's just something I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Cornelius, I think you had a quick suggestion on top of that, and then I'll move to Dumi.
Yeah, I just want to add, so exactly what she said, movement communications is supporting, but we have like the foundation, the Wikimedia Foundation is committed to supporting organizers even better in the coming years, and also to relieve like the burden of organizing events, because organizing events is very tiring and they can be very exhausting. And so starting from this year, the foundation can also book travel and accommodation for your event, especially when international travel is involved. And that relieves you a lot. Yeah. And so that's something that we offer. But we offer also, as I said, communication support. We offer partnership support. We're building at the moment a kind of menu of support that organizers can choose from. Just wanted to add this.
That is great. Yeah, booking travel is not negligible, especially for the bigger international events. I think it also reduces the risk, so that is a great service. Thank you. Dumi, do you want to add something?
Yes, I want to add, especially for local events, that organizers, especially Wikimedians, forget that we've come so far from 2001 or 2010 when institutions didn't understand what Wikipedia is or what Wikimedia is. And so there's an opportunity to get partnerships who can give you access to things like their conference spaces, especially for small events or small editathons that you are trying to organize in your own country. So look out for those kinds of partnerships, because they can really reduce your overheads in terms of the budget. So you can use the money that you're saving with the good partnerships you're getting with universities or computer labs and so on, or libraries, to do other things with your volunteers. So take advantage of the fact that Wikimedia is much more known than it was a few years ago.
Thanks. That sounds very helpful, and there's a lot of development happening indeed in this space. Geoffrey, do you want to talk a little bit about, for example, about like how to put together the program side of the event? Like we've talked a lot about budget and a lot about like how to get the people together, but how do we get the right speakers or the right sessions on the program? Do you have any experience that you want to share for that?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the program, really the first thing is to come up with a theme for the conference. And what needs to be done is, first of all, to understand what are the objectives of your conference. Who is the audience? Who is the target audience that you're targeting to be participating in this conference? What we do at Wiki Endeavor, we normally have like a pre-conference survey and also engage the target audience, asking them, what would you like to see at this year's conference? What topics would you like to be covered? And that gives us like a good idea of, how to shape the conference. And once, the theme is kind of identified from the feedback that we get from the community, So when we have like the launch for the call for submissions, people already have an idea of like, yeah, what do they need to submit us on, because then it has to get to the theme of the conference. And what happens then is like the committee who review the submissions and then put together a conference which is in line with the theme and which is in line with the the audience kind of expectations.
Yeah, I think that is that's definitely a good set of thoughts of like how to make sure that the right people apply to be on the program and show their interest. I think we have a few different ways of doing that in our movement. And especially you may also have to, especially if you're a first-time organizer in your country, you may have to rely a little bit more on your network. And actually, I would always encourage people to invite people to apply as well. If you know someone is a good speaker, if you know someone can really explain something, encourage them actively to apply. Don't trust that they have seen the call, and don't trust that they will apply themselves, because sometimes people need a little bit of encouragement. Vanj, you have a lot of experience with more sharply themed events. Do you feel that is a different kind of challenge, or is that basically the same kind of challenge?
I think it's more challenging if there are events that are extraordinary. But I would consider relevance to the theme, as mentioned earlier, and then inspiring. Both relevant and inspirational is what we really look for in programs. And another thing is people are excited over the future. So if, for example, I'm a community member and I have done good things for my community, or if I'm a community member, I would be always interested in what comes next, like what are the next steps, what lies in the future. Those are the things that make people stick to the program and would want to contribute because they wanted to be a part of something exciting, something beautiful, something interesting, and something big in the future.
Thank you. Then, of course, our audience, I would love to hear from you in the chat, perhaps. Like, what is the speaker that you have been missing on many Wikimedia conferences? Who would you like to hear a little bit more from? And maybe that is a good inspiration for all the organizers out here, or all the intended organizers out here who would like to think a little bit about who to invite. Cornelius, go ahead.
I just want to add something when we talk about sessions, also about what format of sessions do we choose, because when I look at the many Wikimedia conferences in the last 10 years, I think many tend to be very one-to-many presentations, which is understandable because it makes it easier, right? I would say, and it's also a chance for our community members to present their success, their experiences, and to receive recognition. But I would like to, open the question if it makes sense, if that's the best use of our time, because we spend a lot of money in on these events, and if we fly all people to one place for 3 days or 5 days, wouldn't make sense to use or like think about different ways of working together. So workshops have also been really common. I'd say I like to think about also facilitated conversations, discussions, to use the best person, to use the in-person time as best as possible, maybe especially if it's a local conference, discuss main issues of your local community, because it's a unique opportunity to see each other face to face and to have kind of more efficient conversations. I think Lodewijk, you also facilitated roundtable conversations at various Wikimanias, I think, right? So I think you were also going that way, and I think that's a valuable thought. Yeah. So what are different ways of including people in the program also? Because also like speaking up is not for everyone, maybe. Yeah? So maybe participating in a conversation is in a facilitated conversation is an easier way to also include newcomers into the program.
Yeah, as context for our listeners, in the past, like I don't think that speakers or presentations are necessarily the only way that you can bring program contributions to a conference. Definitely discussions are perhaps the most valuable. We talked earlier about like building community, building trust, exchanging information, exchanging knowledge, and having a birds of a feather kind of conversation where people have a round table and talk with each other, where with an active discussion leader, then I think that is really valuable for the conversation as well. So that might be worthwhile considering. I think we have to move on to the next item on the agenda, which actually is very much related. So I would love to hear people's thoughts on this as well, which is like, how do we plan or how do we prepare for like a safe and constructive environment inside a conference? So that starts with like picking the right parts of the program and making sure that we admit the right kind of speakers. But there's many more elements that are involved in that. Rachit, do you perhaps want to give a first shot and like share some main ideas that as an organizer, what do we have to think about when we want to make sure that people feel welcome, people feel to be in a constructive environment?
Thank you for sharing that. I think I'll limit my inputs to like the venue and the choice of venue or the choice of location, and I'm sure others would have some other points to say. I think one of the most important things is the location of the venue. Sometimes we've seen conferences, not particularly in the Wikimedia movement, but in general, which are a bit far away from the city or are a bit removed. And in some cases, we need to see whether there are venues are accessible from a support services perspective, whether there are medical services around, whether there is some safety, whether law and order services are around, and these are things which are important to see. Can you have the venue to yourself, or do you have the attendees staying in the same venue? And I think in general, staying in the same venue in terms of the accommodation and the conference being in the same venue is so much more easier and safer to organize as well, and safer for everyone, and just makes conversations a lot easier. I think also ease of travel, how far is it from whether it's an airport or whether it's a railway station, etc., depending upon the primary mode of transport. I think that's very important. And the third is to also do your site visits, make sure you've seen the venue, you've gone there, you've seen their security services. Are they adequate? Are they not? In some places, you might have various checks before you enter a venue. In some places, you don't. So are they in line with what you're looking at? And it's always good to have a plan B with reference to a venue. Always good to have a plan B in case needed. Hopefully not, but in case needed. So yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps even a plan C when necessary. Rachit, can you talk a little bit more about like how that is different for like a small event for like 25 people and a bigger event for like 200 people? Like what are some of the things you should prepare for, especially if you're going a little bit bigger and things that get more complicated? And is there someone at the foundation that could advise you if you're not very confident about those things?
I think in terms of from small to large, I actually have a belief that at least the checkboxes or the themes that you want to cover for a small or a large event broadly remain the same. So you will look at accommodation, you will look at safe spaces, whether it's for a 25 or a 200, 1,000 people conference as well. I recently was at exactly a 25 people conference, which was a language community, Santali community conference. And the choice was taken to have the community stay in the same place so that they feel safe. They're all together, because there's also safety in numbers. A lot of individuals feel safer when they're around their own people, because many folks might be traveling out for the first time. Many people might be traveling alone for the first time or being in a city for the first time. So it's not just about safety in terms of being in a safe space, but the perception of safety is also very important. So in my opinion, that's something which is good. And when you, of course, have more number of people, then we just need to add more layers in terms of because the more the people, the more the chances of something or the other, going wrong. And do you have all your bases covered? I think that would be very important. And as the number goes higher, the chances, unfortunately, it's basic math, permutation, combinations. The chances also go a little higher.
Yes, thank you. And so that is definitely there's that element of like how do we prepare for a physical safe space? Like if things go wrong, if people needed to see a doctor, like how do you take care of that? And I think everybody will know for their own country what the specific challenges are in their specific country. So that's another reason why it's so super important. I think Reda, you mentioned that earlier, to make sure that you have local people involved in the conference, even if you're organizing something in a more in a location where there's not a lot of local volunteers. Always try to have some local people involved in the conference who know the space and who know where to go. So I think that is definitely the case. Then there's the other side of the safe and constructive environment is like this, the friendly space policies, making sure that we're creating a safe environment, and making sure that people know what to expect and what is appropriate behavior. Is there someone who would like to talk a little bit about that? Like, how do you set those expectations, both before the conference, by inviting the right people, but also, for example, during the conference at the start, in announcements and things like that? Is there someone who, Geoffrey,
Yeah,
do you want
I'm
to
happy
talk
to
about that?
chime in, but Geoffrey,
yeah,
take
I'm
it,
happy
yes.
to share a little bit how we do this at WikiIndawa. So I think one of the things that is very important is to have volunteers who understand what safe space and means at a conference, and who also understand like the code of conduct for the conference. So of course we normally share the code of the conduct for the conference when people are registering, but also it's important to assume that also some people may not read this. So it's very important, like at the opening session of the conference, to really go through this and to clearly communicate what it means, but most importantly to communicate the avenues for communication. If in case someone feels like they have been affected in some way, who do they reach out to? So to even show these people physically that this is the person that you reach out to, this is how to reach out to them, whether by email. Someone may not want to talk, and maybe wants to send an email and report a case. So this is very important. But also the other aspect, to make the conference kind of constructive and safe, is also to know the different kind of people that are attending the conference. So one of the things that we are trying to do at WikiIndawa is also to make sure that, because it's like a regional conference where some people speak French, other people speak English, how do you make sure that the people who speak French, who don't speak any English, are catered for in an English speaking session, and vice versa? If the session is in French, how do the English speakers? So we're trying also to put translation into the conference. Of course, like live interpretation, of course, it's not very easy logistically to arrange, but it helps to make the conference more constructive for the participant, or also for people who do not speak the language to feel like this is a safe space for me, and also to be aware of like, yeah, there is a friendly space policy, but if you communicate the policy in English and someone speaks French, they'll not capture it. So yeah, interpretation and making sure that this is translated in as many languages as possible, I think is very, very key.
Yes, I think that these are great thoughts. In general, we see if Wikimedians come together, most of the times things go all right, right? Most of the Wikimedians mean well. They are trying to do the right thing. So if you set the stage and you set expectations, people try to follow that as much as possible. But I do feel that it's always important to make sure that there's someone in charge. And I think this comes back to Dumi's earlier point, like making sure that people have responsibilities and take responsibilities. That there's someone in charge for like if things go wrong, if people misbehave, that people know who to ask questions. And I think Geoffrey was also mentioning that very correctly, like make sure there's a clear point of contact and someone who actually follows up, and that people can trust on that, because that is the trust you're building over time. And something I would add myself is like I think that the biggest risk in many events is the speakers, the people who prepared their talk and who set the example for the audience. So if you can instruct the speakers very clearly, like this is what we're expecting, this is the tone that we want to set, this is the kind of respectful attitude that we want you to maintain. That is always a good start for many of these policies. Is there someone else who wants to add to that and perhaps give some experience of like how you can prepare for that very constructively, Vanj?
Yes, I would suggest a positive mindset before even thinking about like applying or going to an event. You have to teach yourself or tell yourself that you are there to contribute to the greater good and not contribute to any negative or hurtful attitude. So, what we always tell our participants is to leave their ego in their houses and not bring their egos somewhere else.
I think that is an excellent suggestion. Thank you, Vanj. Cornelius, go ahead.
Just wanted to add some more details. So one important point is also when you have selected the scholarship recipients for your, if you provide scholarships and if you have selected them, it's actually obligatory, but like compulsory, but like to send the foundation the names of the list of the scholarship recipients, because our trust and safety colleagues do a check if there are is there anyone globally banned, because people that are globally banned are not allowed to attend Wikimedia events. And I think, as Geoffrey said, choosing or like setting like a trust and safety team for the event is also really important. At the Wikimedia Summit, we gave them special shirts or special lanyards, I think, so they were really approachable. And I also read out the first paragraph of the Friendly Space Policy out loud in the opening ceremony, just to set clear what we're expecting, what is not tolerated. I think that helped really set the ground and the tone, basically. And I think Geoffrey said it is good to have multilingual trust and safety members. I would also highlight it is good to have at least one female and one male member of the trust and safety team, because there might be gender-related trust and safety issues that are easier to talk from woman to woman, basically. And so that's really something that I highly recommend. Just one time.
Those are great suggestions. And I think, Cornelius, you might agree that it's the same. If you know in your local community there's some different kind of split, you may want to consider the same thing. For example, in like ethnic splits or in like linguistic splits, or there are so many different splits. So people in their local situation should evaluate whether big groups in their community can always approach someone they feel comfortable talking with. I think that is definitely a very important aspect. Cornelius, especially because you talked earlier about online, do you feel that we need a separate person who is responsible for online trust and safety, or would that be managed by the same people?
Oh, I definitely, if you have the capacity, I definitely suggest to have a separate one. It depends what kind of interaction you allow online. If it's a chat, if it's a live stream and you have a YouTube chat, it is helpful to have someone who monitors the YouTube chat, but that it is. If there's real interaction, if there's a parallel Zoom room to your offline event, then I also recommend to have someone really present there and to say, I'm available here for any trust and safety issues. That is definitely recommended, because like people who are in the offline space being trust and safety members, this is already quite a challenging task, and they won't be able to take anything that happens online, basically. So splitting that burden across several shoulders, I think that's very, very useful if you have the capacity for that.
Yeah, I think especially from Wikimania, we've seen also those challenges. That is, online is a very different kind of sphere, and it can blow up very quickly. A lot of people can react very quickly, and that can get off the rails very rapidly. I think this mostly concludes a lot of the topics that we wanted to discuss, but I want to see if we have a little bit of time for one or two more questions from the audience. I would like to ask people to give short responses if they have any. First from Butch, we had a question if people could recommend what are some good techniques on like telling the story of your conference, sharing how people have really experienced their conference. Rachit?
I can take a quick stab at it. I think in some of the conferences I've been a part of, there's, we know the blog, which is something which I would also encourage everyone to see. I'll just post some links here that you could probably share. These are just some links of the different conferences and some of their outcomes, etc., and some of the thinking. It's also very nice to leverage not just post but also during the planning. Maybe you want to have a blog on how you chose the scholarships, on how programs happened, or unveil the themes. That these are things that have happened, and I think this kind of creates the excitement as well for the conference. And post conference, are you looking at photography, videography? Are you creating like a wrap up video? Those are things which are important. And then, of course, leveraging diff is important too from a storytelling perspective, and at the same time documenting the processes of the different subcommittees or the different parts of the COT would be important, so that those learnings can be shared with not only the next edition but also cross regional. So we've had, in my experience, the ECAP conference COT speaking with with the Wiki Conference India COT, and just exchanging documents, so that you don't really need to start from scratch, because you might already have some templates, etc. already. So these are just a couple of things I wanted to share.
Thank you. And then I saw a question from Nahom, who was asking, based on your experiences, how involved are local community user groups? So the different smaller user groups across the continent, how involved are those in different organizational roles for international conferences? So I'm thinking about Wiki Indaba, Wiki Arabia. Reda, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, like briefly, like what is the role of a local community group? And if a group is interested, when do you think they should apply for it?
Lodewijk, can you repeat again your question? I lost the...
So for these international rotating conferences like Wiki Arabia, Wiki Indaba, what is the role of local community user groups, and how do they, who should they approach if they are interested in organizing one?
If we are talking about, for example, if you are talking about Wiki Arabia, this is always done online, so not during the conference or something like that. So this is done on our social media, on Facebook or on Telegram, and after that we can create a meeting online. But the best way to do that, it's like for Wiki Indaba, is to have a steering committee who can everyone approach and ask if they can do the conference or not. I think this is the best solution, is to have a steering committee.
Thank you so much, Reda. I think we have to wrap up. We're out of time, but I would love to ask everyone on the panel, perhaps, if they could share one thing that they remember from this conversation, that if someone wants to organize a local conference, they should not forget. Like, what is one takeaway that you want them to remember? And I'll just go in order. Vanj, do you have something that we want people to remember after this?
Yep. Enjoy and learn as much as you can, and bond with other attendees of the events.
Oh, I like that one. Thank you so much. Reda, go ahead. What do you want people to remember?
Don't be afraid of anything. So everything can be solved with Cornelius.
Wow, Cornelius, that is great to hear. Geoffrey, what do you think people should really remember?
Yeah, that there is funding available and support from the foundation. So yeah, the foundation team will not stop even at provide you the funding, but they'll go along the way and help you along the way with check-ins, just to make sure everything is okay. So when you're like in panic mode, they're there like to calm you down and say, you know what, everything will be okay. You can do this. So I think that's always encouraging, and it's what I would love to leave with everyone who is attending to this call.
Thank you, Cornelius. With all this praise, what do you want people to remember?
Build a team. It's not a single man or woman task to organize a conference. Build a team that you can trust, and work together so you can split the many tasks. It is very exhausting, but also a very rewarding thing to organize events. But build a team. It's really much easier to do things together than alone.
Thank you, Cornelius. And then Rachit, what do you think people should really remember?
I think keeping your attendees at the heart of whatever it is that you're planning in terms of the experience, the programming, etc., because it is for the audience. I think it is a process you should enjoy. It's a tiring process, but at the end of the day, once the conference is over, you all reflect back, and it's mostly usually with a smile. And also, we're all in this together. I think they always ask for support. The foundation. There are experienced individuals around you as well. We're all in this together. That's the spirit that you host a convening with and a conference with. So enjoy the process and keep the attendees at the heart of your planning.
Thank you, everyone, so much. This is a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, everyone. What I myself really have as a takeaway is that keep in mind why you're organizing this. I think that really went through the whole conversation. Remember why you're organizing this. It's for building communities, for exchanging information. And that is like, if you always keep that in mind at every step of the way, that makes it a really successful conference. Thank you, everyone. I think we're now, I have to apologize to Nani and to Donia for going over time. But I think the conversation was worth it. We're now moving to Nani, I think, for the In Focus segment.
Thank you so much, Lodewijk. It's Donia, not Nani, but thank you so much for your hosting this session. It was very good one. And personally, I learned from it too many things. Thanks to all our guests who joined us today. And for our audience, don't leave. We still have another section, which is in Focus 1. Today, our In Focus section is a special one. It will be like a clip of interviews we conducted with African Wikimedians and attended the previous Wiki Indaba and WikiArabia. We asked them some questions related to their previous experience about attending similar Wiki conferences, maybe the main takeaways they gained from these conferences, the main sessions they attended or learned from, and their opinions about the themes of each conference. So before we start, tell us in the comments if you attended any conferences, especially the previous WikiArabia and Wiki Indaba, and let's watch the video together.
محرر وأدير في كبدة أحمد ناجي محرر وأدير في الكبدة العربية أحمد ناجي محرر وأدير في الكبدة العربية عضو في مجموعة ويكيميديا مصر وويكيميديا القاهرة الإسلامية.
Bonjour. Je m'appelle Ahmed Mohamed Tahir. Je suis membre de la communauté Wikimedia User Group Chat.
أنا محمد الأمين بلدو. عضو مجموعة مستخدمي ويكيميديا الجزائر، وكذلك ضمن لجنة التحكيم للفيديو لويكي قهوة إفريقيا لسنتين أخيرة.
Hello, my name is Ibrahim Laidi, and I'm Executive Manager of Egyptian.
Unfortunately, we have like a technical issue with the InfoCast section. The video is breaking, as you see. So we will post it separately on our YouTube channel, and we'll share it on our social media and on Telegram. Thank you again for attending with us today. Don't forget to attend the next episode, which will be after 2 weeks on 13th December. And will be about the Wikimedia individuals, projects, and the challenges they face. So stay tuned and subscribe us on our social media, WikiAfrica, and on Facebook, Twitter, and join our Telegram group. Stay tuned for the next episode, and see you. Bye-bye.
WikiAfrica Hour is a production of Wiki in Africa that supports the development of the Wikimedia movement across Africa. We value your suggestions on social media for the topics you want to discuss. We look forward to your participation next month at the same time and on the same channel. Hit the subscribe button to stay open and up to date, and follow WikiAfrica on social media. See you at the next WikiAfrica Hour.